Fiio has been in the market for quite a long time, and I cannot believe that this is the first time I am reviewing a Fiio product. I remember that I bought my first Fiio product back in 2015, I think. While I was backpacking around Taiwan, it was a small little Fiio X1 DAP, which was all the rage back then, and it lasted me a good while until the screen died a few years later. So today we are taking a look at the Fiio FD11. This earphone was loaned to me by a friend especially for this review. You know, for the longest time I've been quite confused by Fio's naming conventions until someone pointed out the obvious to me. They have very specific meanings which actually blew my mind. So for the FD series, these are basically dynamic driver IEMS, well, because D for dynamic driver, right? What else? Where FH was their hybrid designs and FA denotes balanced armatures. Anyways, and because I only received a pair of earphones themselves, an unboxing is impossible, and as such we'll just start off by talking about the build quality of the earphone. So build quality, the chassis is made from die-cast zinc that has a silvery finish applied on top of it. They do feel quite sturdy in hand, and I feel that if you accidentally sat on them, the chances of them surviving will be higher than me dying from a heart attack when doing a bungee jump. It has quite an interesting look to them where most of the chassis is rounded, and this makes it fit really well in my ears. I also really like the shape of these over some boring custom universal shape, but they do remind me of more than one visual cues from another brand. I rather enjoy the raised section of the nozzle which aids in the fit of the earphone. The FD11 also supports 2-pin termination for you to mess around with cables should you have the dire urge of changing them around. A 2-pin to 3.5mm cable is provided. Fiio did not specify the material used, but clearly we have a twisted cable. Ergonomics of the cable is also plenty good. The cable does feel a little dollar value storage, but I guess this is to be expected when you are looking at a cheapie. Inside the chassis of the FD11 is a 10mm driver that is carbon-based and promises quick transients with minimal distortion. Oh, the next point doesn't really matter, but I thought I'd say it anyways. That is the FD11 is high-res audio certified, which basically means nothing. In fact, you can actually buy the sticker and just stick them anywhere itself. Comfort. I have no issues with regards to comfort of the FD11. They fit in my ears pretty well and have no real hotspots. The cable provider is also very manageable, but I do feel that the FD11 is kinda like semi-open. As such, sound isolation is not the best, as I do realize that there's a bit more external noise than I like, so just bear that in mind. When it comes to sound, the FD11 has a very typical V-shaped signature that is pretty Harman-esque, so I think this is going to be an IEM that many will enjoy. I've graphed the FD11. As you can see, it has quite a prominent bass response and an elevated upper-mid boost. I actually rather enjoy the timbre of the FD11. These are clearly a fun-leaning pair with decent technicalities that allow for its semi-open nature to shine. Resonance is also very natural on the FD11, and especially when you listen out to the bass, it has this natural expansion of air that reminds me of bass when you go and watch a live concert. It is also tonally very consistent as it is a single dynamic driver. I like how cohesive it sounds, and the tonality does not really vary too much from the different frequency bands. When it comes to bass, the FD11 is quite bass dominant, but not to the levels of being a bass head IEM. There is more of an emphasis on the sub-bass and mid-bass, which tapers a little higher in the frequency band into the mid-range. They are also rather thumpy from the added mid-bass emphasis that has added resonance that makes it addictive to listen to. If you're wondering if this characteristics affects the vocal through bleed, it actually does, which warms the lower mids just a little bit, but most of the added bass energy dissipates quite quickly from the semi-open design. Transients are decently fast on the FD11. It isn't the fastest, but done so in a way where it gains the fun nature to listen to. Bass details can be a little bit better, as I think that the resonance has a bit more presence over fine details. Mid-range, there is just a little bit of mid-bass bleed that affects the lower mids a bit, and as such, lower mids does not sound too separate, but this isn't consistent as the upper mids are quite free from this characteristic. The upper mids are a little bit more prominent, but I never thought they were particularly shouty. I actually like how female vocals are rendered here, as it is adequately sweet. They do allow you to perceive it to be quite clear, but after a while you'll realize that the separation between the instruments in the mid-range is quite mediocre, as this is due to the slight bass bleed that kinda congeals the edges. Tonally, the mid-range leans warm. Treble extension again is decent but not mind-blowing. They have some air in the treble, which is nice in this category. I never found that the FD11 to be fatiguing, but it does enough to separate out the mid-range. Your sibilant buddies, the crashes and cymbals here remain comfortable to me whenever they are in play. Soundstage! When it comes to width and height, extension is quite well done on FD11. It does sound quite big comparatively. This is attributed to the semi-open design. Depth and positioning. This is where it becomes a little problematic for the FD11. Because of the bass bleed, it is hard to gauge depth and positioning accurately as the definition between the instruments are quite average. And of course, we'll go into some comparisons next. Firstly, against the Simgot EW200s. The EW200 is the latest release from Simgot. Both the FD11 and EW200 feature a V-shaped signature, but I do find both of them to be quite tonally different. The FD11 has a more spacious, in terms of width and height, sound as compared to the EW200, but I think that on the whole the EW200 does soundstage better as it has better instrument separation compared to the FD11. In the lower mids, the FD11 does sound a little bit more blurry compared to the EW200. The EW200 is able to render details compared to the FD11 and does it in a way that is more precise as well. It does not have the same size of sound as the FD11 in terms of height and width, but wins when you consider positioning and depth. Both the EW200 and FD11 are fun-sounding IEMs, the FD11 being a little more fun-sounding compared to the EW200, where it has a bit more technical chops. Next, we're going to compare it to the Truthears Project Red. So the FD11 beats the Project Red flat when it comes to build quality. I know my ass is safe if I sit on the Project Red, as it won't poke my butt too much before it cracks. I'll probably survive from that crack. The Project Red is yet another V-shaped IEM, but done so in a way where it is milder. So the difference between the bass, mids and treble is smaller. Mid-range is a little bit more forward with the Project Red compared to the FD11. And as such, you get more contrast between the levels of bass and mid-range in the FD11 over the Project Red. I do feel that the levels of detail is slightly better on the Project Red than the FD11. But the FD11 has a very nice and relaxing personality that makes them quite easy to listen to. And finally, in conclusion, the FD11 is overall a relaxing IEM to listen to. Yes, they might not have the best technical chops, but they remain pretty decent with an easy-to-like signature. The metal build that they have is really good and can really survive a beating. If you like the content so far, please kindly press the like and subscribe button somewhere down below. It will help me out a bunch. Yeah, when you are watching this video, I'm probably still on my trip to somewhere. Hopefully I can get some special footage from where I'm going to share it with you guys. And yeah, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the Super Chunk Super Audio show, and I would like to see you guys soon.